How do you risk everything chasing fortune in the deadliest ground on earth? Parker Schnabel isn't just mining, he's rewriting the rules of gold hunting. His sights are set on the Widow's Cut, a legendary Alaskan shaft rumored to hold $84 million in untouched gold. But there's a reason it's been left alone. The mine is so unstable, most consider it a death trap. Parker's daring new strategy could either make history, or cost him everything. Parker Schnabel knew brute force wasn't enough, so he turned to cutting-edge technology. Using advanced drone mapping and LiDAR scanners, he peered beneath the frozen Alaskan ground, and what he discovered was staggering: a collapsed shaft hiding a direct path to a massive gold vein that had remained untouched for generations. This was no ordinary find, it was the land that time itself had forgotten. In the brutal world of Klondike gold mining, certain places carry a weight heavier than rock. They are whispered about in camps, marked on maps as cursed ground. Places where brave crews tried and failed, leaving behind only stories of disaster. Among them, none was more feared than the Widow's Cut, a stretch of earth so dangerous, so merciless, that it became legend. For decades, it was declared off-limits. A fool's mission. A graveyard for ambition. It sounds almost like a miner's ghost story, but the Widow's Cut wasn't feared because of superstition. It was feared because of science. The ground here is locked in unyielding permafrost, not just frozen dirt, but earth cemented by ice for thousands of years. Imagine digging into a block of steel, reinforced with rock and ice. That's what miners are up against. This isn't ground you simply break through with a pickaxe. It's a brutal, unrelenting wall of frozen earth, a mixture so dense it defies traditional mining. Even Parker's massive 73-ton D10 dozer struggles against it, every push burning through fuel at astronomical costs. Every attempt to carve a shaft or ramp is a fight against nature itself, a fight most miners wouldn't even dare to start. And that's not even the most significant issue. The true horror of permafrost lies in its unpredictability. As an excavator digs into the frozen soil, the engine's heat and the friction from the excavation can start to melt the adjacent ground. This doesn't result in a softer texture, instead, it creates a perilously unstable situation. Picture massive chunks of frozen soil and rock, bound together by ancient ice, suddenly losing their structural stability. The outcome is a disastrous collapse, a sudden and violent implosion that can entrap millions of dollars worth of equipment and anyone unfortunate enough to be in the vicinity in a heartbeat. It's like a geological trap waiting to spring. For decades, no one had discovered how to neutralize it. But hold on, it gets even worse. In addition to the collapse risk, there loomed the constant danger of severe flooding. Deep within the permafrost, there are pockets of water and underground springs trapped under tremendous pressure. Breaching one of these is akin to bursting a high-pressure balloon. Water can surge into a mine shaft, transforming the floor into a slushy, unstable quagmire and potentially inundating the entire operation within minutes. The season is drawing to a close. It's been a tough journey. We are significantly behind schedule this season. It's a real challenge. With water jeopardizing the shaft walls and threatening to ruin heavy machinery, the financial stakes were simply too high for most. Previous efforts by other mining companies to tackle the Widow's Cut had all ended in disaster. They left behind shattered equipment, enormous financial losses, and a reinforced myth that the ground was cursed. The rumors intensified. The gold here was protected by the land itself, and it would never relinquish it. Confronted with these life-altering challenges, it would have been the simplest decision for Parker and his team to just walk away. The legends promised a king's ransom in gold. But surely, no amount of treasure was worth risking the entire operation, not to mention their safety. But Parker Schnabel doesn't back down. Where most miners saw an impossible wall of ice and stone, Parker saw an opportunity, a chance to conquer the unconquerable and etch his name into gold mining history. He wasn't interested in simply trying, he was determined to crack the Widow's Cut wide open, no matter the cost. Bravery alone wouldn't win this battle. To survive the frozen labyrinth beneath his feet, Parker needed more than muscle, he needed a technological miracle. The answer came in the form of lasers and eyes in the sky, tools that could reveal secrets buried deep within the earth. With high-tech precision guiding every move, Parker turned an impossible fight into a daring new strategy. But here's the truth, accepting the challenge didn't make it any easier. It only raised the stakes. What could, then? Contemporary technologies. For gathering LR data across large regions. Parker's crew had a few secret weapons in addition to their standard equipment of excavators and wash plants. Instruments capable of conducting land surveys in ways that Klondike Gold Rush pioneers could only have imagined. And they did precisely that. The old-fashioned method was the original plan. In the pay dirt, dig a brand new ramp. However, that idea was doomed due to the permafrost. In addition to being excessively costly and risky, it would also be too slow. They weren't pulling gold every day, they were fighting the frozen earth. The expenses of fuel, labor, and machine wear and tear were all mounting up. They were spending the entire money for the season on a project that had yielded no gold at all. They needed to act quickly and wisely if they didn't want to finish the season with a devastating defeat. At this point, the game took a radical turn. The crew used their cutting-edge LAR system. LiDAR, range, and light detection. LiDAR is a remote sensing technique that measures elevations of objects such as buildings, forests, and the ground using lasers. The majority of people are unaware of how groundbreaking this technology is for contemporary mining. The technology used in self-driving cars to create a real-time map of the world is called LiDAR, or light detection and ranging. Each second, the device emits millions of laser pulses, which return to a sensor after bouncing off the ground. It generates an extremely accurate three-dimensional map of the ground with centimeter-level accuracy by timing the return of each pulse. They combined this potent instrument with cutting-edge drone mapping. They could use the LiDAR to look straight through the dense trees and overgrowth that had engulfed the area for decades by guiding a drone in a perfect grid pattern over the widow's cut. The lasers mapped the actual geometry of the ground below, ignoring the vegetation. After piecing together all of this data, they discovered something amazing that had been concealed for generations. Time had forgotten the secret that the lasers had revealed. An entirely obscured vertical shaft that collapsed during the initial mining operation. This forgotten shaft was over 40 meters deep, according to their exact measurements. That is more than 130 feet deep into the ground. This was the moment of realization. They might use this old collapsed entrance rather than fighting the permafrost to excavate a new one. It was a direct path to the center of the riches, their covert back entrance. Though it was a calculated risk rather than a blind one, the prospect was nonetheless extremely terrifying. At last, they had a plan that may work. It was one thing to find the road, but quite another to follow it. The cleanup cost $10 million. The entire crew was energized by the revelation of the buried shaft. They finally had a workable plan after weeks of frustration while they stared at an insurmountable challenge. However, this was not a simple task. The shaft was straight down into darkness, collapsed, and unstable. Making it safe to descend was their first task. It was an intimidating idea that needed heavy-duty engineering and surgical accuracy. They gently removed the rubble blocking the entry with their big machinery. The most crucial step, stability, followed. They started building a support structure inside the shaft piece by piece after bringing in enormous reinforced steel beams. The labor was nerve-wracking and slow. There was a chance that each time a beam was installed or a scoop of soil was made, another collapse might occur. However, with a level of concentration that only comes when the stakes are this high, Parker's skilled crew was able to establish a safe route. By constructing a steel cage to keep the perilous dirt at bay, they had subdued the beast. They were prepared to fall. They discovered something amazing at the bottom. It was legendary in the mining world. They climbed through the last of the rubble and into a room that had been closed for decades. And there it was. In addition to gold flakes in the ground, their flashlight beams revealed an unspoiled vein of rich gold quartz. The majority of Klondike operations, for those who are not familiar, are placer mines that look for loose gold flakes that have eroded from their source. The ultimate prize is discovering the hard rock vein, the source itself. On site, a geologist said it was the richest and cleanest natural deposit he had ever seen. There was an almost desperate sense of urgency at the sight of that scintillating vein. They had to act quickly since they realized this was a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. In the Klondike, word spreads quickly, so they didn't want rumors of their discovery to draw unwelcome attention or claim jumpers. Fueled by adrenaline and the prospect of a huge payout, the squad worked tirelessly around the clock with a determined mindset. This is where things start to get really crazy. All expectations were crushed by the results of their unrelenting efforts. After 3 days of relentless labor, they were able to extract nearly 4,000 ounces of gold from that one vein in just over 72 hours. They calculated the value, which was astounding, more than $10 million. For the majority of the season, that one haul was sufficient to meet their operational expenses, leaving millions to spare. For the squad, it was a significant, nearly life-altering experience. A season on the verge of collapse has been transformed into a huge success by this one cleanup. However, this amazing score was only the start. There was a greater mystery in the mine. The second Klondike Gold Rush. The season was saved by the $10 million score. However, there was still a larger, more incredible treasure hidden a bit further down in the ground. Following the initial enthusiasm, the crew carefully examined the vein's geology and the gold. The camp was rocked by what they discovered. The vein was far wider and much deeper than they had first believed. The scientists estimated it probably stretched for a further 1.4 miles underground based on its thickness and some rapid geological assumptions. The numbers really start to go crazy at this point. My objective is to determine whether there is any better land out there that we might be mining, as this is where I began my life. The team arrived at an almost incredible figure after performing additional calculations and accounting for the richness of the paid dirt they had already processed as well as the vein's enormous prospective size. They might have been sitting on an additional $75 million worth of gold. You get a treasure worth $84 million when you add that to the $10 million they already possessed. Not only would it be a good season if they succeeded, but it would be the most successful season in Gold Rush history. All of a sudden, everything shifted. Parker's shoulders felt twice as much strain. More issues arise as wealth and attention increase. In the Yukon, everyone was observing. They weren't merely observing, either. They were conversing. Whispers started flying. Become this surely the most important gold strike of the 21st century? Had Parker just rewritten the rules of the game? The questions came fast. Might this massive strike deliver Parker even more strength within the mining global? May want to he even take care of the pressure of handling a domain this big? This is the part of the story where you have to take a step lower back and wonder. It's clean to look the headlines and assume Parker Schnabel simply got lucky that he stumbled onto a fortune overnight. But is it ever that simple? The aspect is, we see the triumph, but we do not see the years of grinding it out, the failed possibilities, the equipment breakdowns inside the sour bloodless. We don't see the sleepless nights spent demanding about fuel payments and making payroll. You need to wonder, are we missing a key element in this narrative? A discovery this massive feels love at adjustments all of the rules. Did his excessive tech tools actually do all the paintings? Or become there in detail of natural gut instinct worried that we can't agree? This wasn't just gold anymore. This turned into an essential shift in power. This became history inside the making. Parker wasn't scared. He changed into targeted. This was the moment he were operating closer to for years, ever on the grounds that he took over his grandpa John's operation. He wasn't going to permit it slip away. However, you have to imagine the weight of it all. This discovery may want to exchange the entire financial system of the Klondike. Land expenses ought to skyrocket. New prospectors may flood the area hoping to discover their own jackpot. It is like throwing a boulder into a still lake. The ripples had been going to unfold a ways and huge. Parker Schnabel's large gamble paid off, turning a geological nightmare right into a mythical jackpot. But with a discovery this huge attracting this a lot interest, has he just invited a new, greater dangerous form of rival? What do you suspect? Changed into this luck, talent, or something else? Allow us to recognize underneath. And remember to love and subscribe.